Welcome once again to the vlog. I am your host. Today, I'll be reviewing Kevin Smith's new film, Clerks III. I wanted this film to be good. I really did. When he announced it, I was very excited because I was hopeful that this could be a return to form. I was okay with it being a self insert. Kevin Smith had a heart attack a couple of years ago. I was also okay with them redoing the same basic premise for Zack and Miri. However, there were immediately some red flags. It was originally a roadshow film. Lionsgate eventually gave them 2 weekdays in September. If the studio had no confidence in this film, then that's not a good sign. I decided to watch it anyway, and I suspect it was made to go straight to streaming, just based on the aspect ratio. Now, I'm a bit conflicted, and I think it's going to almost sound like I'm reviewing this on a curve. I think there will be people who enjoy Clerks 3. It's a nice reunion for superfans of the classic film. If Clerks 3 was made by a 20 something independent filmmaker from New Jersey on a shoestring budget, I'd be much more willing to overlook a lot of the film's problems. It's not that Clerks 3 is a horrible film, or rather, it's not the worst Kevin Smith movie. It's probably the best film he's made in over a decade. It's just incredibly uneven. The film drags, especially in the beginning. Unfunny running gags go on far too long. Some of the jokes are no longer edgy, they're just annoying. And it relies almost entirely on nostalgia. The little winks and nods may work on the superfans, and the jokes about Zack and Miri don't really excuse that this has already been done before. That's not to say that the film doesn't have its moments. The opening scene in particular is pretty fun. Close to the end of the film, it starts to gain more cohesion, and it ends on a fairly good note. However, I think the conclusion goes on longer than it really needed to be. What I mean by that is that I think they got to a good stopping point, and then they just kept going, and decided to end it with a ridiculous deus ex machina. Kevin Smith tries to make Clerks 3 a more emotional affair, but Christopher O'Hallahan's just doesn't have the range for that. Rosario Dawson had the best performance in the film, but unfortunately, her handful of scenes weren't enough to save it. I felt her talents were almost wasted in her cameo role, but I don't think the budget would have allowed for anything more. There were also some what felt like forced cameos. I will give him credit for this. Before the film began, Kevin Smith decided to give a little pep talk to the audience. He also decided to speak to the audience during the end credits. After the film, there was a little documentary on the making of the film. I think this was a smart move on this part. I think those who are susceptible to that kind of stuff might make them more likely to be forgiving, but perhaps I'm just too old and jaded. He mentioned something about the distributor, Lionsgate, and how one of his early films was one of their biggest films back in the 90s. The way he told the story, he almost made it sound like they did it because they felt obligated to do so. On the other hand, maybe it's not Kevin Smith. It's me. I've grown as a person since 1994, and I've moved on. Kevin Smith hasn't changed, and neither have his characters. they're both still stuck in the 90s. In many ways, he's regressed as a filmmaker. There were moments in the film that I felt were good and genuine. I want to believe that Kevin Smith still has something that he'd like to say, but he doesn't know how to say it. I want to thank you for watching my review. I really wanted to like this movie, and the audience that I saw it with wanted to like it too. In retrospect, we should have just rewatched Clerks. These are just my thoughts and opinions on the movie, and it should not be considered an endorsement. If you loved it, I'm very happy for you. I just wanted it to be so much better. Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day.